I also think that the United States happens to be at a point where I'm not sure we are clear of what our vision is as a country and as a culture anymore. And so I think we have a challenge that if we want to maintain the basic tenets upon which the country was built, that we must face that. Now, migrating that same idea to a different culture, or one that one may think or perceive isn't quite as developed, I believe that even those countries have to have a vision of what will engage all of their people to make their country grow and become more of an economic or more of an independent nation. Without that common vision, I don't think that they'll have the power to emerge and grow to be what they probably would like to be. And so I think there is a clear relationship. Then, how we are dealing with different cultures as we globalize our businesses, I think we have to take that into account of how that impacts the vision of what we're trying to do. And maybe we have to use different tactics or different plans to accomplish our vision, but ones which accommodate or are sensitive to the local cultures and where those countries are going. I think part of our own dilemma currently is what's happening with the independent states in the former Russian countries. Is what vision do they have as a commonwealth so that, in fact, as businesses want to move there and set up their business and conduct business, it's very difficult as to who to trust, what systems are working, which systems aren't working, and which direction they're ultimately going to go. And we don't know what the vision of what they're trying to accomplish is, which makes it difficult for us. Now, get back into the initial strategies, etc. Which strategy or which plan do we use, not knowing where they're going? So I think there's a lot of similarities here. So hopefully that's your question.
Next question comes from Mexico, in Chiapas, Mexico, from the Technological Institute. Thank you very much. My question is as follows. How can you create that open environment that encourages this acceptation, this of the vision?
Okay. I think creating the environment for people to become successful is a key role of a leader. In fact, I have this saying, I'd rather be called an environmentalist than a manager. And the reason I say that isn't because of some of the connotations about environmentalists today, but I believe that the leader's responsibility is to create the environment where people can be successful within their organizations. Until we as leaders do that, the business will probably never be as successful as it can be. And so part of creating that environment is, I think, we'll talk a little bit about in the next section, but is for the leadership to have a clear understanding of what they want to do, be willing to openly discuss it with the folks, engage their people into maybe making that even better by asking questions. And as people have input into the process is where they will also put their commitment in definition. So I think creating it in a way is sort of opening ourselves up to be vulnerable to some things that we don't know. We don't have to control, but we have to be able to open ourselves up, maybe hear some things we don't want to hear, maybe get some feedback that isn't very comfortable, but at the same time open ourselves up and be willing to discuss that. And I think as you establish that sort of communication pattern of being able to tell the truth, of being able to establish trust, that in fact the openness will come from that. And so creating that environment which leads to that openness is what will also lead to the engagement and commitment of the organization and each person within it.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. This has been our first question and answer session, and now we are going to have our second segment, and here we are, the second part.
Fundamental to vision becoming a reality are the guides which the organization articulates so employees know how to act, namely values. As I shared with you last year during the previous Strategic Vision broadcast, the organization I work with discovered the importance of vision during our quest for quality. But for vision to be realized, we also discovered the organization must have a clearly defined set of values. And like vision, alignment of the values of the employees with the values of the company are fundamental to accelerated success. Let's begin by recalling the role of values. It is the same for both individuals and for companies. Values are the guides by which people act, form decisions, respond to others, and make commitments. While visions define the what, values refer to the how the vision will become a reality. Each individual has a set of values that guides his or her personal life. As one defines a personal vision, one will also be clarifying one's values simultaneously. However, the more clarity one has about his or her own values, the easier it is for the individual to choose those organizations which support and nurture his or her values. An individual will be most productive in an environment where his or her values are in congruence with the company's. That is why I encourage every one of our employees to reflect and define what their personal values are. Like an individual, organizations have values. Hundreds of decisions are made throughout the organization on a daily basis, which are based on either articulated or assumed value sets. Highly successful leaders make it a point to make sure the values for their organizations are clearly defined and shared. For shared values are the foundation for building productive and genuine working relationships, says Jim Kouzes. Further, recognition by employees that a vision is shared gives them a common base upon which they can collaborate. Jim Kouzes and Ed Posner have conducted considerable research around whether using shared values makes a difference. The answer is yes. In organizations where the values are defined and aligned with the employees, tremendous energy is generated. Commitment, enthusiasm, and drive are more intense. The people experience less stress and can be more effective. On the other hand, the organization also benefits. Employees are more loyal, more creative. Further, the quality and accuracy of communication and the integrity of decision-making processes increase. The chart on your screen depicts some of the results of research results. Note the differences in level of support to the company goals, the difference in perception of leadership and management, the difference in stress. Many other studies are now producing related results, such as alignment between the two value systems as a predictor of employee satisfaction, organization turnover, how operating unit performance is linked to value congruence. Armed with this knowledge, it's critical for companies moving into global markets to have completed their values homework. For the remote offices will operate not on rules and regulations, but on what are the basic beliefs of what the company stands for and its operating philosophy. How the organization arrives at the definition of its values is as important as the definition of the values themselves. Based on our experience, the journey, as we refer to it, is as important as the output. The journey requires all employees to participate in the process and together agree on the definitions and design. Participation is essential, for having contributed their own ideas generates ownership and buy-in. The process is not necessarily easy nor quick, because discussing values is not a normal process. We usually experience something like the following in business. People hesitate to get engaged immediately. And once they are engaged, the discussions may evolve slowly while they become more comfortable with discussing something which is so. Some of the questions which are dealt with are, what values do we actually believe here? Do they make a difference in our behavior, in what we do? Are we consistent in application? These are very thought-provoking and essential questions. Again, the journey or the discussion is as important as the output. Many parts of our organization have been working on defining their values for over a year. But where the discussions have taken place, we are seeing behavior and results similar to that which you saw from the research of Jim Kouzes and Ed Posner. What are the values I'm talking about? They are probably best described by Jim Autry, former president of the publishing division of the Meredith Corporation. He writes in his book, Love and Profit, the values of business are changing. While there are no new values, he observes, that traditional management values are being replaced with values which have always existed, but usually aren't considered part of conventional management thinking. He sees it as a movement from protection values to growth values. Since we have moved from a position of product and technology as being our most important market differentiator to our employees being the singular most important differentiator of our business in the future, our experience validates his belief. He talks about a change in values from safety, a position of having things defined and predictable, to one of spontaneity, nurturing risk and freedom. From feeling separate from others, from being the boss and being isolated, to feeling connected to others, being a leader, part of the team, understanding and identifying with others. Ego defenses, from protecting oneself and avoiding personal challenges, to vulnerability, willingness to ask for support and help. A movement from self-control, making sure you always appear completely in command, to self-knowledge, knowing who you are and understanding your shortcomings. From knowledge, having all the answers for everything and for everybody, to wisdom, searching for the truth and demonstrating the willingness to learn. From role-playing, being someone else, being the distant boss or supervisor, to authenticity, being the same person wherever you go. Comfort at all costs, to avoiding pain and not relaying bad news, even if it's critical to the business success, to truth at any cost, understanding that it is more important to tell the truth about business issues than for personal ease or comfort. Control of others, making all the decisions and governing contribution, to communicating with others, listening, dialoguing, understanding others. From permanence, keeping the status quo, to potential. How far can we take this idea? Do the growth values appear more closely aligned with what society holds close, or what you believe in? Or what your people believe in? Jim Autry is also a poet. He has a particular poem which I think supports the shift in values and challenges us with the idea that each person is valued. It is called Threads. Sometimes you just connect, like that. No big thing, maybe, but something beyond the usual business stuff. It comes and goes quickly, so you have to pay attention. A change in the eyes when you ask about the family. A pain flickering behind the statistics about a boy and a girl in school, or about seeing them every other Sunday. An older guy talks about his bride, a little affectation after 25 years. A hot-eyed achiever laughs before you want him to. Someone tells about his wife's job, or why she quit working to stay home. An old joker needs another laugh on the way to retirement. A woman spends a lot of her salary on an au pair, and a good one is hard to find, but worth it, because there's nothing more important than the baby. Listen. In every office you hear the threads of love and joy and fear and guilt, the cries for celebration and reassurance. And somehow you know that connecting those threads is what you are supposed to do, and the business takes care of itself. The challenge for our people is now for them to consciously review their own values in view of the group's values. And the challenge for our leaders is to reinforce and live the values. Earlier this year, I was asked to work in an organization on a project. Since I would be working closely with many of the members of that organization, discussing some very difficult business issues for a potentially protracted period of time, I requested an interview with the leader, who was highly regarded by the company. As I entered the person's office, I noticed a framed value statement on the wall titled, "Our Shared Values." During the course of the interview, I asked the leader what questions I might have, or the leader asked me. I pointed to the framed card and asked, "I see that you have shared values for your team. Do the people in your organization try to live by those values? Are they the values that drive your daily behavior?" In response, the person said, "I don't know. Let me see," and proceeded to get up, walk across the room, and read the shared values which he had personally led the team in developing. Finishing, he sat back down and said, "No." I was a little bit stunned by the response. However, because understanding the values held by the organizations I choose to work with is important to me, I continued. If anyone in the organization is behaving contrary to the shared values, is it acceptable for that person to openly speak to the others about it? Is it something which you, the leader, would support? "I suppose," was the reply. So I asked, "Let's say we are in a heated meeting and we come to an impasse. Do the participants ever turn to the shared values to help them make their decision?" "I don't know," came the reply. So I continued, "If I join your team on this project, would it be okay for me to do that?" "I guess so," he said. I asked one more question relative to the shared values. If I were to join your team and observe you behaving in a way that does not support the shared values, would it be okay to come and discuss it with you? The response? Yes, that would be good. A little curious, and after the interview, I visited with some of the team members and asked some of the very same questions. I'm sure you can guess what the answers were that I received. The real values they lived and survived by were very different from the shared values which they had all defined. And yet, each of the people I visited with had a deep sense of hope that one day the team could live by the shared values. What do you think are some of the lessons in this story? Why do you think that in spite of spending the time to define their shared values, they chose to live in a very different way? What conclusions might we draw based on points discussed earlier? Allow me to make a few suggestions. and I know there are many, many more which you could add. First, if you thought vision, you're right. I did ask each one of them what the vision was, and in every instance, including when speaking to the leader, they didn't know what it was, or they read the one hanging on the wall. Essentially, they didn't have a common vision, a common focus. They didn't have any ownership, and they weren't committed. Without a vision, the shared values became a symbol of hope. The defined shared values matched the people's personal values, but were not the ones they could exercise without a common purpose. Second, the leader was not an enthusiastic spokesperson for the vision or the shared values. By default, his constituents soon realized that the vision and values were not important. Third, the infrastructure systems like new member orientation or recognition and reward did not support the vision and values. While some of the team had helped define the vision, no one had taken the time to engage the people in the journey, so the vision was someone else's. Also, no one could recall anyone ever being recognized or rewarded for living the defined shared values. The result? Non-compliance or apathy. I'm sure that you have thought of many more connections. Keeping those thoughts in mind, what are some of the ways you could go about defining shared values in your organizations and avoid some of the pitfalls in the story? Some steps you might find helpful are offered by Jim Kouzes and Ed Posner. First, get together to start drafting your group's credo or beliefs. Soliciting people's ideas and concerns is critical. Again, if involved, people will contribute what is important to them. After it's drafted, ask them if it meets their interests. Are they represented? Is it fair? Secondly, make sure there's agreement around values. The best way to accomplish this is to have the employees write down what they believe are the key values of the team. Then meet, discuss them, and agree on them. From experience, this step will take some time. Number 3, conduct a values survey. Have your people design the survey and ask the others if the values are understood, believed. Are they used in daily decision making? Have them analyze the results for the meeting. Fourth, connect the values with reasons. When values are connected, it's easier for people to relate to them, remember them, and commit to them. Fifth, structure cooperative goals. With the vision in mind, have the team analyze how to achieve the vision. This will help them to recognize that they will only achieve the vision interdependently, working with one another, helping one another. Make sure everyone knows the business. Ask a series of business questions such as, who are our toughest competitors? How do we make money? What do our customers see as our differential in the marketplace? These questions verify whether people have a common understanding. Lastly, be an enthusiastic spokesperson for shared values. As leaders, constantly and publicly affirm the shared values. These steps are one way to define your values. There are others. But they represent the elements which were critical to us on our journey. Well, we all know that we can't run a business only on a vision and a set of values. We need plans. The third key to success is the development of strategic plans and operational plans that flow from the vision and values. Note, I didn't say flow from the vision only. It is our experience that without connecting the strategies to the values and then the vision, the infrastructure which you build to functionalize your business will most likely not be aligned. Vision described the what. Values described the how. Strategic plans describe the operational direction to achieve the what. Michael Doyle provides the following comparisons between the characteristics of strategic plans and visions. He says, Strategic plans appeal to the mind, a logical sequence related to current market and business data. Visions appeal to the heart. Strategic plans are rational. Everything is connected and explainable. Visions are founded in intuition. Intuition is more relational and holistic than logical or connected. Strategic plans have a linear view. One thing follows another. Visions approach things holistically. The mind attempts to create a complete picture from what is known. Strategic plans are made in reaction to trends in the marketplace and or what peer companies are doing. Visions express desires to be unique and creative, going beyond the logical messages from the marketplace. Strategic plans focus the organization on directions, showing one how to get somewhere. Visions focus on the end state, knowing that all the directions to get there are not known. Strategic plans work from the present to the future. Here's where we are today, and this is how we will go. These are our next steps. Visions focus on the future end state and work backwards to the present. Strategic plans are usually expressed in jargon or businessese, whereas visions paint images with poetic language. Strategic plans are usually secret, sometimes even from those who are to execute them. That happens in our company once in a while. Visions are shared with everyone. They are offered to everyone. Strategic plans push people to make the next step. Visions draw people forward to the future. Based on these comparisons, do your vision statements sound more like strategic plans? Do you attempt to use strategic plans as the motivator of people? Do you attempt to create your vision from your strategic plans? We are consistently challenged by the same questions, and the answers are easier to say than to execute with clarity throughout the organization. The linkage of vision to values to strategies has caused us to relook at the linkage of leadership in our business. Traditionally, we focused our leadership on strategy execution, obtaining the results. But as we have gained understanding of the role of values and its linkage to vision and strategies, we've learned that we needed to found leadership on values. For sustainable competitive advantage and sustainable results, where the entire organization is engaged, the leaders needed to move from the directional next step mode to the how to get things accomplished mode. Hence, the birth of our values-driven leadership effort. For a manager's function is to lead and move and bring out the latent capabilities and dreams of other human beings, stated by Mr. Lilienthal, the chairman of Tennessee Valley Association. The two driving conclusions which drove us to develop this model were, first, the core value of the organization is respect. Respect for each other and respect for the customer. Our definition of respect is in the broadest sense of encouragement. The second conclusion was that our core differentiator is a fully developed person. The need for our people to have a strong commitment to personal growth to become their best. The model is quite simple. It is leadership based on values, implemented through standards, monitored by expectations, created to meet external needs, and managed by quality principles. While simple in format, is extremely challenging in approach and execution. One of the exciting aspects of our endeavor has been the learning which has occurred from the top to the bottom of our organization. The discovery of the journey and what we consider critical elements for replication. The discovery of the experience at the heart of growth, the discovery of engagement leading to enrollment and commitment, the discovery of the fact that it's okay to do something even though the entire corporation may not support your behavior, the celebration of growth, The power of linkage of vision, values, and strategies. The combination, strategic vision. In conclusion, I want to share with you a personal experience I had this past year related to the importance of vision, values, and strategies. About a year ago, I was invited, volunteered some would say, to participate in a re-engineering effort for the core support processes for the organization I work in, AT&T's Global Network Sales Division. Re-engineering. I understand that this broadcast in the spring will have a module dedicated to re-engineering. Briefly, re-engineering is taking a look at the process that you use to support one of your main functions in the business. For example, ours was human resources, and you completely throw it away, redesign from the very beginning based on best practices what you believe that process ought to be to catapult you into a future state where the process is much more streamlined and much more effective. Well, the two main areas that our team addressed were human resource processes and the training processes. The project began, maybe some of yours have too, with a great deal of customer research articulating what our customers expected of a world-class sales team, how they wanted to be treated. This effort led to the articulation of several design themes which became guiding principles for our work. In addition, major processes had been identified as key and were to be the focus of our effort. As the team began, our four of us began our work, we quickly focused on gathering benchmark information and research on all aspects of our key processes. For 5 weeks, we documented world-class processes. At the end of our research, we began to assemble the process information to create a minimum of 3 completely distinct approaches supported by 3 distinctly different organizational structures. For almost 4 weeks, we were completely frustrated over not being able to assemble or articulate even one approach. Nothing was fitting together. Nothing seemed to fit. We reviewed the direction, our planning hypotheses, our focus areas, and their relationship to the other 3 engineering teams. What emerged was the fact that we could not find an overall vision guiding the effort. While we heard our president express a vision for the project, there was not a clear vision for the business we were re-engineering. An old saying, when in doubt, make one yourself. Since we had worked so closely together for several months by this time, we all had an idea of what the organization we dreamed of would look like. We quickly were able to define a vision. In fact, we defined 3 visions to support the 3 distinct approaches for which we were to define human resource and training processes. After defining the visions, we defined the values for each. Remembering I earlier stated that the ideal quality of vision is rooted in and reveals your value preferences. The values were different for each of the 3 designs. Next, we defined distinct strategies which were linked to the vision and values of the 3 designs. Having completed the vision, the values of the strategies, we were able, using displayed thinking techniques of Michael Vance, to select the best practices in 12 categories, demonstrate how each idea could be traced back through the strategies to the values and the vision, and complete the design of 3 completely different organizations with integrated processes in 2 days. Having the information mounted on the displayed boards allowed us to test every idea and challenge for the next 4 months and test how or if it supported the vision. The end result? The vision and values and strategies allowed us to proceed dramatically closer to creating our dream than we ever imagined. We became believers in the power of strategic vision. I invite you all to make this concept an integral part of your business and personal lives.
Continuamos con la segunda sesión demostrativa de preguntas y respuestas. La primera llamada nos llega desde Villahermosa, Tabasco.
Tabasco, Mexico, Pemex, the Mexican Petroleum Company. Good morning. This is Patricia Castañeda. Our question is the following. What do you suggest in order to establish a vision in the midst of a constant pressure, both legislative and environmental?
Well, I think my first suggestion is don't hesitate. And the reason I'd say that is because things are moving so rapidly that as a business, I think that we need to have a vision to engage the people. There will always be legislation, and I think there will always be changes in governmental direction. And with those changes, I think each organization has to adapt. And as we adapt, we may have to modify our ultimate vision, or we may adapt our behavior for a period of time, retaining the original vision. But as I suggested earlier, I think over time we have to look at our visions, and we really should revisit them almost every year. And just make sure we still understand it, discuss it with our folks, and also make sure that we're still committed to that, because that again is going to drive what plans we have to accommodate those regulatory or those governmental influences which are changing our direction. So I'd again say don't hesitate. I think you need one. I think it's important for engaging the organization. I think we work on strategic plans to address how we get around or through them. If in fact they require a change in vision, then we change the vision. I don't think anything is totally in concrete these days in the global business world. However, I would hope that your vision is futuristic enough that in fact you can engage the folks for some period of time to achieve that goal.
And now we have a phone question coming from Mexico again, and from Oaxaca, Mexico. Good morning, good morning. This is the question. The shared values, do they have to be linked to the idiosyncrasy of the individuals and of the environment in order to achieve a strategic vision?
No, I think, I would state it this way, I think, that what we're attempting to do is define what we believe the values of the organization are. So, for example, if a fundamental value of the organization is respect for the individual, that will probably drive different behaviors as to how we are going to treat our employees, how we will treat our customers, how we will behave in meetings, how we will probably address those people to create the environment where they can be successful. If customers are a value, and I hope they are, how we treat the customers becomes very important. Now, are we saying that we're taking in all the idiosyncrasies